All right, so Arena Breakout Season 2. There was a new dev Q&A that came out, and I just wanted to make a quick video kind of highlighting some of the things that were talked about. My take on it, some of the wins and some of the losses, in my opinion. But again, I will front load all of the important stuff on the video. That way, you can pretty much get everything in the first, 10 minutes or so of the video. And then I'll kind of go into my own discussion on some of the questions and answers from that Q&A. So with that being said, we'll go into some of the more positive side of what was talked about. So you will have Forbidden Farm is coming back in the new season. So you'll have Lockdown and Forbidden on Farm. They're also going to continue to expanding Farm in the future, so we'll see more adjustments to that map. They made adjustments to TV Station as far as some of the line of sight and verticality stuff. There's, I guess, some adjustments made for certain routes that you can take and whatnot to make things better on that map. They're also working on a PC exclusive map. Didn't really talk a whole lot about that, but they did mention that it's going to, have a very specific focus, and it's going to be outdoor and indoor. They are also adjusting spawn locations on the maps, and they will continue to make adjustments based off of feedback. So hopefully that cuts down on some of the spawn in and run for about 5 seconds, and you're already getting sandwiched between 2 to 3 different teams or instantaneously killed. They're adding duo mode, so that's a huge W. So you're not always running into 3 and 4 man teams if you're playing solo, duo, whatever that looks like. Solo ops mode is a permanent mode now, and the miscellaneous items are having their loot adjusted. So basically they're gonna make those items worth more, so that hopefully just dead sprinting to safes isn't going to be like the best way to make money all the time. But obviously if you get lucky and you get that red or whatever that looks like, yes, you're gonna have a huge amount of money, but at least they're boosting the value of the other items, so you can kind of loot around the map and still come out with a decent amount of money. Now some of the okay things or not so great things, grenades. You can still cook grenades. They did not implement quantity restrictions on grenades, and there's no change to the stamina from throwables, so it's not going to affect your stamina at all when you're throwing multiple grenades over and over and over. However, they did make an adjustment to how grenades affect different types of armor. So obviously the higher tier armors now will have more protection from explosions. So obviously the probably the tier 5s, tier 6s, you can't just get blown up with one grenade. It'll probably take 2, maybe 3 grenades to kill you, which is great for the people that are running that high tier armor. But for people that are probably running tier 4 and maybe not the as rich players, yeah, we'll just have to see how that plays out. But they said they would continue to make adjustments and take feedback, so we'll see. There is no current adjustment made to gear or money restrictions for different modes, so that's staying the same, which kind of sucks because you have people going ultra sweaty in lockdown, and even normal, it can get kind of crazy from what I've witnessed over the last couple of days, which is really odd. But anyway, they are adding the Arsenal and Arsenal Shuffle mode, which is like that gun game mode, kind of like how they added like the team deathmatch and team elimination. They are implementing that 3D ping system, so you will be able to ping locations on the map instead of having to, you know, open up the map and hit it with a marker and all that stuff, which is good and bad. I didn't mind it so much until you take a look into how it can be, you know, abused, and I didn't think of it from the people who are, you know, doing the, you know, third-party enhancement with cheating, but they can literally ping on the map now where all of the players are located, especially for the ones that are doing, you know, carries for players for money, which I didn't even think of that side of it, but that was a good point that I think it was Dean Pro is his name. I think, hopefully I was right on that, but he had mentioned that on his dev Q&A review of that video, and I was like, wow, I didn't even think of that. Obviously, trophy room, new skins and weapons are coming in. You know, they do that, the skins and weapons, pretty much every season, so that's nothing new or, you know, crazy. The trophy room is brand new, so that'll be a nice little, like, quality of life thing. But that was pretty much the vast majority of what was talked about. They are looking for potential coin sinks to help combat like inflation from, you know, not having wipes and you know, having those resets. So I'm hoping for some sort of prestige system, because that was one of the reasons why I stopped playing Delta Force 2, is that, you know, they had talked about this prestige system, and I thought they were going to implement it in this season that is either just passed or is about to end, because I haven't played the game in a couple months now. But they were talking more on the Arena Breakout side, being able to purchase certain account assets. So, I don't know, maybe like cosmetic stuff, or maybe like more storage or something, I don't know. But I think more people would be interested in that prestige, just so it completely resets you down. Like, let's say it wipes out all of your money, your inventory is wiped, you're starting brand new, basically like an account reset, like it's a wipe, but it's an optional wipe. So for the people who don't want to have everything completely, you know, erased and starting from the beginning, they don't have to. So I think I hit most of the main topics, so that should only take up about 8 minutes of your time there. I may have missed some of the smaller things that were talked about, but if I did miss anything major, be sure to put that down in the comment section for me. And, you know, also, I'd like to hear your guys' feedback as far as the changes that they're making, what you think they could be doing better, what changes you guys would like to see in the future, because obviously the devs do listen and take into account feedback from the players, but I feel like some of them, they're kind of almost like, I won't say scared, but they're more like, I don't want to make any major changes on this, like the grenade thing and the cooking of the grenades and all that stuff. But be sure to let me know what you think in the comments below. So there is one thing that I forgot to mention, one of the changes that they spoke about in the dev talk, and that was the graphics settings changes to where they have a lower setting now that you can do, and you can actually completely remove grass in the game. So I don't really think that's a great idea, just because, you know, you're gonna think that you're covered if you're, like, say, sniping, or you're trying to, you know, break line of sight or something like that. And if you have the higher graphic settings, or you have your grass turned on and they don't, then you'll be hindered by it, but they can see you plain as day, from my understanding of it right now. So hopefully they kind of backtrack on that one. But as of right now, that is still a thing. So I just wanted to mention that because I did forget that when I was talking about, you know, the some of the not so great things that they're changing in the new season. With that being said, though, now I'm going to go into some of my thoughts on the changes. So, obviously, you know, duo mode and solo mode is something that people have been asking for a long time. So, I think that's like a huge win on ABI's side for adding that in. And I think that's going to be awesome, especially, again, for people who like to play solo or duos and they don't always want to be going up against, you know, the 3 and 4 man, you know, super sweat Chad squads, you know, all the time. This will be a welcome change on that. Or maybe, you know, some people, like even myself, I have like maybe a handful of friends that I play with, or else I'm just like solo queuing into, you know, random games. So having a duo mode, because I only have maybe one friend on that I can play with, is nice. Same thing with solo, obviously. Maybe I just want to run some solo and go against some other solo players, so that's a nice feature. Bringing back Forbidden mode on farm is a huge W on that side. Because I know a lot of people were kind of questioning why they took Forbidden Farm out of the rotation. So it'll be nice to have that back, and then obviously that they're going to continue to expand Farm out, because one of the reasons why I like Farm is it's quick PvP, right? Like, you're hitting people within the first 5 to 10 seconds almost every single time when you're playing Farm. But because of the size, I think it kind of jacks up the spawn locations and, you know, the variety of spawn locations you can have. So if they kind of expand it out a little bit, it'll give you a little bit more time, because, yes, quick PvP is fun, but I don't want to be getting spawned in and then, you know, shot at within the first maybe like 4 or 5 seconds. So that'll be a nice change. You know, they're already expanding it once in this current season that's coming up, and they're going to be expanding it out further. You know, same thing, adjustments to TV station. To be fair, I haven't played a ton of TV station, but any kind of change that they make to maps to make them better, and, you know, maybe give players more like routes to take on the map, and make you know, maybe some of the visual stuff, you know, better, then that's always a positive. And obviously them making a PC exclusive map is nice. Any kind of addition to the game for you know, things like new maps and that is always usually going to be a W, because, you know, everyone wants to experience some different locations and settings, and, you know, keep things fresh. Hopefully, though, as they keep adding more of these modes and maps and things like that, because this is the only downside. The more things you add, the more it can potentially, you know, basically splinter the current player base. So hopefully they end up releasing the game on Steam here in the near future, because that will bring a lot more players in. And then you hopefully will not be running into these situations where you're playing on a map and you may run into like 1 or 2 actual players, and then everything else you're killing are these like player bots, you know, the AI bots, and you know, it'll be a better experience. So new modes, new maps are great, but they also need to keep in mind the player base, player counts, you know, and be able to balance things out that way. Again, adjustments on spawn locations are always nice. Maybe add in some spawn locations. You know, obviously expanding maps out like farm will also bring in new spawn locations, and they can kind of move the current ones around a little bit to, you know, adjust those out better. So that's good. The loot value adjustment is going to be good, especially for, you know, people who are either new players, Or there's just, you know, people who like to kind of go around the outer edges of the map or explore or not go into all of like the heavy PvP areas and still feel like they're able to accomplish something as, you know, as far as like, oh, I can actually make maybe like $250,000 or, you know, maybe even like up to like $500,000 or something, whatever that looks like, off of just having like a bunch of purple items, as opposed to, well, the only way I'm really gonna make any real money is if I find some of like the better gold items, or if I get lucky and I come across a red. So I think the that adjustment is good. As far as the like, we already talked about the modes, so I'm not gonna go into like Arsenal and Arsenal Shuffle. I mean, if you like that stuff, just like the team deathmatch and team elimination, great. I like more of the team elimination than I did the team deathmatch, and I played a little bit of the Arsenal like Shuffle on the playtest. It's gun game, so okay, cool, there's more options for people. Not gonna, you know, knock it, but it's probably not something I'm really going to be playing a whole lot of, unless it's like maybe to warm up or something. You know, the trophy room and the new skins and all that stuff, and weapons. Obviously, additional weapons are nice, as long as the new weapons aren't going to be like crazy overpowered, which usually ties into, you know, the rate of fire, what type of ammo they can use, you know, all of that fun stuff, which we'll see how this season goes with the new weapons. But yeah, obviously people are aware of the Mosin and SVTUs and stuff that are being used with like red ammo, you know, naked players for the most part, going in and like 1 or 2 tapping you, and usually like the best case, which is never great when you're, you know, going in there pretty decked out and you're getting, you know, killed by some dude camping in some random spot with a SVTU with you know, red ammo or whatever that looks like. So we'll see. Trophy room obviously is nice. That's just a nice quality of life thing. You can display some stuff and all that fun stuff. The 3D ping system, I think it's alright. Is it like a massive change for the people who are playing legit and all that stuff? Probably not, but, you know, like I was saying earlier in the video, for the people who are not so legit, yeah, you know, they can be pinging other players if they're using like the ESP cheats and stuff like that. So, you know, that's gonna be a little bit crazy, but you know, obviously I don't think they should balance features around like people who are cheating, because the right answer to that is they should be, you know, taking care of the cheating problem and keeping it, you know, as minimal as they can, because obviously there's always going to be somebody who's going to find a way to cheat, no matter how great the system is. It's just how fast they act on it, and you know, if they're continuing to police the game. So ping system, I think it's going to be you know, an alright feature. Speaking of cheating, I don't think they really went over any kind of like stuff as far as adjustments to their anti-cheat or stuff like that in that Q&A, from what I can remember. So that's one thing they didn't really talk about. To be honest, in my experience so far, like, I've only ran into maybe a handful of situations where I thought the person was kind of sketchy. So in comparison to playing Tarkov and Delta Force, that's a huge difference, because Tarkov used to run into people that were using all kinds of different stuff all the time, and then Delta Force, once you got into playing, you know, the hard modes or whatever, like every time you were getting killed, you were kind of like, was that legit, or was it, you know, somebody who's just got a lot of time in the game? But you get killed so fast in Delta Force that, you know, you got like .0001 seconds to react to something in most cases, or you're dead. So, I mean, it's really hard to tell in that game to begin with. But anyway, enough on that rant. But the biggest one for me that I was hoping they were going to make some adjustments to, actually two things. And that's the grenades and the restrictions on money or gear requirements for the modes. So, the grenade cooking thing, I'm with the vast majority of people. I don't believe you should be able to cook the grenades. I think they should just take that out of the game, and I think that would be like a massive improvement to begin with. And I get the perspective of where the developer was talking about, you don't want to make things too restrictive to where it's like you're telling people you can only take like this amount of throwables or this amount of these like certain grenade types and stuff like that. Same thing with like the stamina drain. They don't want it to be like, oh, you're in a critical moment where if you could have been able to throw a grenade, like it could have saved you or whatever. But that's also balancing out, your, I guess, stamina pool and your tactical abilities. It's kind of like you have to, it's a balancing thing, right? Same thing, if you full on rush or decide to take it slow, you could have different, consequences based off of that playstyle. So, I mean, the stamina thing is, I think that would be a decent one to try out. To, it's like, hey, you can only throw so many grenades in a row, and then it's like, you've drained, like, that stamina. Because it's restrictive, but I don't think it's, like, extremely restrictive. The quantity one is like, yeah, you're hard capped that you can only bring this amount in. Maybe they could do something where you can only bring a certain amount in, but you can pick up however many that you want, but then you have to get into the, the whole thing of like, okay, well, who's to say, like, you just don't have a teammate that comes in with their grenades, and then they all offload them onto you, so now you've got, like, 8 grenades, and then anything else that you pick up on the map. So, I mean, there's ways that you could get around that system, just like how you can get around the system of, like, the gear requirement or money requirement stuff right now by, like, not equipping the backpack and having stuff not on your character, so you just kind of, like, carry it in and then put it on so you can actually get a little bit more, higher tier stuff or bring more stuff in just by manipulating the system that way. So I think they should remove the grenade cooking altogether. I think that would be step one. And test that out, see what people think. And then they can tweak little things to balance it out on the grenade side, because grenade spamming, like, yes, they're all about, like, the being able to make different tactical decisions and things like that, but at the same time, somebody just being able to sit there and throw, like, 7 and 8 grenades at you because they brought in just a boatload of grenades is a little bit ridiculous, and you don't really see that in real-life situations. Like, you're not grenade spamming. You're using it to either get somebody to reposition, to cover you repositioning, or to clear out, a confined space, like a room or something like that. So I think they could have made some better adjustments this go around on the grenades, but they did make the armor adjustment so you get affected differently based off of the armor type that you're wearing. So I guess whether or not you get, like, bleeds, breaks, whatever that looks like, and then also how much damage you're taking from the explosion. But that's really only going to help out the people who are, like, always running, like, tier 5, tier 6, so they're always going in there, like, kind of beefy. What's it doing for, like, the not so rich or the more casual players that maybe can't afford to do that all the time? So we'll see how the armor change, affects things, because it's also, the people who aren't as rich would use grenades to kill these beefy players, but now they can take a couple hits from these grenades, at least probably, I would assume 2, maybe 3 grenades before they die, so that's going to be interesting. But the last point that I wanted to go over was the restrictions on gear and, you know, the money value, I guess, of what you bring in. So I get it that you don't want to make things too restrictive so that people are just running the same gear types, and there's like kind of like that meta of like what you bring in for each mode and stuff like that, which that kind of sort of happens right now. Like usually people are running like maybe 1 or 2 types of armor and helmets. Same thing with weapons. Like a lot of people run the HK, the M4, the AEKs, or like I was saying earlier, like the Mosins and the SVTUs and stuff like that. So I mean, the smaller caliber weapons in that, they need to go in and adjust that stuff, because nobody like really uses them, at least not like heavily. And you know, as far as the restrictions go, I think what they need to do is they need to take into account like money restriction, and then also gear restriction. So somehow they have to have the system calculate like, okay, going into normal, you can only bring in, say, like up to like tier 3, right? Armors. And then same thing with the ammo. Like you only bring in a certain level of ammo, which is kind of, I guess, a little bit harder because you only have like, it's white, and then you have like the purple, and then you have gold and red. So maybe adjust ammo around to where you have another tier like Delta Force, where it's like, you know, they have white, green, blue, purple, gold, and red. So that way in like normal, for the newer players or the people that are just trying to like make a little bit of money because they're like super broke or something, maybe have it to where it's like white, green, and blue. And then once you get into Forbidden, now you can go purple and up to gold, and also have it to where, you know, maybe the farm and valley, you can still only go up to tier 4 armor, but then Armories, TV Station, Northridge, you can go up to tier 5 armor and lockdown. And then once you get into Forbidden, it's, you know, tier 6, you know, tier 7, whatever that looks like. It's pretty much fair game. And also limit thermals to the Forbidden, instead of it, you know, being any mode. Basically to make it a little bit easier for people coming into the game to not get stomped, and then the people who are trying to, you know, step up into that next level, they have 1 or 2 maps that it's like, okay, it's not going to go super crazy, and then once you get into the other maps, it gets a little bit more, you know, alright, now it's tier 5, and then once you get into Forbidden, it's like, alright, it's fair game. But they also need to make it to where you have to have at least some form of gear on. So they have to balance like that money amount and the gear that you're equipping, so that you don't just have like the naked runners, right? So normal, obviously, sure, you can run with a knife or something, but once you get into like lockdown, like, you shouldn't really just be able to go in with, say, a really good weapon and that covers your minimum value and not have any like type of armor. Like, they should have a requirement to where you have to have something slotted in there, because remember, it's supposed to be like that next tier up of, hey, we're now getting into this, like, you know, harder mode per se. So somehow if they can balance the Cohen requirement and then having like gear slot requirements, I think that would be good. Obviously there would have to be a lot of tweaking and balancing and adjustments made on that, but that's my take on that end. But with that being said, I'm up to almost getting close to the 30-minute mark. So, like I said, if you guys have any comments on the new season, things you'd like to see adjusted, remove, added, whatever that may be, hit up the comment section. If you enjoyed the video, hit me with that like and that subscription, because that helps me out a lot. And I'm looking forward to testing out the new season on July 10th, and I will see you guys in game. Peace.